Welcome back to Fixed Dish, everybody. Here I am playing with some fire. Hopefully I don't get burned today. So join along and let's see what we get into. Alright everybody, I got a fun one today. We have a machine that has chains that have failed. So these chains are past their stretch spec and they're going to get replaced. Don't have to get all that high in the air, but to get safe, we're gonna go up there and lop off the nuts. We're gonna bring the chain down, cut this lower part off, and we're gonna replace the chains and sets. I figured it'd take you along, show you something kind of fun today. The chain we'll be replacing is leaf chain. There's two types of chains to consider. There's leaf chain and roller chain. Roller chain is more typically used on things that have like a drive gear, such as your bicycle. Bicycle chain is roller chain. You'll see it a lot on agricultural equipment to drive different types of power equipment. This here is leaf chain. Leaf chain is stamped pieces of steel overlapping each other. That overlapping is called lacing. And so the lacing for this specific chain we're working with is a 3x4. That means in one row, you've got 3 leaves, and in the row that overlaps, there's 4 leaves, and then there's a pin that links them together. When identifying the chain that you need to order, there's AL and BL chain. Sometimes it's stamped on the side of the chain as far as what type it is. This is BL chain we're dealing with. It's a heavier duty chain, and the size has to do with the pitch, which is the center line of one link to the next. This chain that we're dealing with is 1.5" pitch, which makes it a BL 1200 chain. And then we need to know the lacing. Again, this is a 3x4 lacing. So this chain would be a BL 1234 or a BL 1234. That's a BL 1200 series chain with a 3x4 lacing. Beyond that, you'll need to know the length. And the length, you want to give yourself a little bit of waste because you'll have to cut the end of the bulk chain and drive out one of the links. So make sure you give yourself a little room for error. Chains can fail for a variety of reasons. They can fail due to an actual physical failure to the leaf links. They can crack, break, fracture. A number of actual problems can occur with the leaf links themselves. But you can also have a type of wear that occurs over time. The chains can stretch due to the pins themselves bending or the ovaling out of the holes of each leaf. There are chain gauges available to check both leaf and roller chain. So from the outside or looking at the end links, they may look fine, but the chain is actually longer than it originally was due to the wobbling out of the holes of each leaf or the elongation of the holes. In my experience, I haven't found very often where the chains are overloaded, causing the elongation. It's usually due to the dirt and grime in the chains and then going up and over the pulley that's causing the rotation or the wearing of the pin inside the link. That's usually where most of the failure comes from. You can only go up and over that chain shiv so many times before it actually starts to oval out that hole. But you can have a physical elongation of the chain by overloading the machine more than what it's designed for. Right there, you're seeing the acetylene part of the knob catch on fire. There's a little bit of a gas leak. This is the customer's equipment that I'm using. I need to go ahead and let them know so they can tag this out, get it repaired. It's not that big a deal. It happens quite a bit, but it can be dangerous. So yeah, next time you see something like that, don't let it go forever. Make sure you definitely get it tagged out before you continue to let somebody use it and someone gets hurt. As always, wear your PPE. Torch cutting is very bright, so make sure you wear a shaded mask, and it also prevents you from getting hit from the sparks, and then leather gloves. So you're probably kind of wondering why I didn't just cut the anchor off, and I have a reason why I do this. In my experience and in watching others, when you go to just cut the whole anchor off, sometimes people actually cut into the anchoring part of the carriage or the mast itself. Whereas what I'm doing is just cutting the nut in half and then knocking the nut halves off. You are very much less likely to cut the anchor point or gouge into it a little bit and weaken the structure, or may even damage it to the point where it's not safe to repair. So here I'm just cutting the nut as close as I possibly can to the anchor point, and then using a chisel and hammer to knock off the halves of the nut, and therefore the anchor point is completely untouched. Out. And when we go up, gotta be safe. My customer owns this equipment. This is not a United Rentals piece of equipment anymore. But when it comes to owning a piece of aerial equipment, and when it comes to using a piece of aerial equipment, back in 2019, OSHA updated its regulations for aerial lifts. There's a lot of key changes that occurred, but basically it changed into the emphasizing the importance of proper training and certifications of aerial lift operators. Basically, what it has done is passed a lot of the responsibility back onto the operator and the end user, as well as the owners of these pieces of equipment, to make sure that they're up to date and safe to use. So if you're somebody that uses a piece of aerial equipment and the annual inspection is not complete, at this point, you would actually be a fool to go up and use that piece of machinery, because the responsibility does fall back on your shoulders to make sure that you are doing what is necessary to be safe while in the air on one of these pieces of equipment. What's funny is, while I was editing this video, I noticed how much that load spreader spins around freely in the video. It'd be kind of nice if the customer had some kind of chain or restraint to keep it from doing that when it's not in use. Might be something I suggest to them, I don't know. So part of the reason why I'm getting elevated to cut off this part of the chain is I'm going to use it to help me install the chain. This stuff's heavy. This section of chain alone probably weighs between 175 and 250 pounds. That's with the anchors and everything when it's completely built. So instead of cutting the anchor and having this 200-pound piece of chain flopping out of there uncontrolled, I'm going up to a place where I can control the chain the entire time while I take it loose. And I don't want this flopping out at knock Jesus. So what we're going to do is bring in a majority of the chain here. Okay. Well, since you didn't get to see that, brought most of the chain in with me. Now we're going to cut it off. So a little future foreshadowing here. If we take a look and see how this upper chain anchor is installed, down here you'll see two of the nuts. One's the nut for adjustment, the other's the jam nut to keep it from moving once it's in use. But above the anchor point, you'll see that there's no other nut there. And I actually kind of make a little bit of a boo-boo installing this. Not a big deal, but it was just more of a minor inconvenience when I was finishing the job. Now I can hear some of you screaming at the monitor right now, hey, if you just said that that chain is between 175 and 250 pounds and you've pulled it into the basket, aren't you overloading the basket? Well, you have a very valid point. I myself am about 200 pounds, 210 pounds. And when I pull the chain in there, if I estimated about 250, that puts me at about 460 pounds in the basket. I don't have any other tooling in here except the torch. So the basket is good up to 500 pounds. So I'm good. I'm well within my range, but that is something that you do need to consider when you're doing this type of work and bringing other things into the basket with you. For anybody that's getting into a newer heavy trade like this, I would suggest when you get opportunities, when you have entire replacements, take the time to practice cutting these nuts off without touching the thread of the anchor. There'll be times in the future where you'll actually need to do this, where you'll want to cut the nut off and not touch the original anchor, whether it's because the anchor's not available anymore or due to the expense, etc. But it's quite a useful skill, and I do recommend trying to learn how to do that when things don't matter. You made it this far into the video. I want to tell everyone I appreciate you watching. If you wouldn't mind, please like, share, subscribe, and hopefully you're liking this narration format a little better. I'm trying to not only share with you my experiences, but maybe even show you a little bit of the expertise and things that I've learned over the years, and hopefully teach you something. I fell in a mostly good place. Okay, got all that chain, and didn't disturb anything on the anchor. This anchor mount in the mast is what I was talking about. You don't want to nick with the torch. Now let's go cut our new chain. And if you wouldn't mind, YouTube has actually recently changed how their algorithm works. It's kind of stalled out the progression of my channel. If you don't have any interactions with the videos when you watch them, like commenting, liking them, sharing them, etc., it is much less likely to distribute my videos to others and suggest it to others. And if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and throw a comment down there, even if it's a hey, good job, or that's excellent, awesome, or hey, you did something unsafe, or whatever it is. I read all my comments. I try to reply to everybody, and I would much appreciate it to help me try to grow my channel and get me to my first 500 subs. There we go, not too shabby. There's my anchors and my pallet of chain. Alright, got my chain brought in and some tools I'll need. We're going to show you how we're going to break down this bolt chain. So I went ahead and counted it out. You want to count them, you don't want to line them up side by side, because with wear these links stretch out. So count the links. This right here, you don't count the masters. So that's a master link. That's what that is. So you count whole links. In this case, it's 33, not counting the master on each end. So I will count out 33 links on this. We'll grind out the 34th, and then we're going to pound out the pins. They do make chain breakers, but over the years I found that just grinding the face of the pinched links off and then pounding them out is the fastest way to break the chain. We got those both ground down. And now we'll take our air hammer. Okay, now we'll go ahead and punch out this link. Just like that. And right here I'm putting the master link in to join the chain to the threaded anchor end. They're pretty easy to put in. You don't have to hit them very hard. Just make sure you assemble them appropriately. And not all chain uses master links. Some of them use master pins, so the pin actually goes through the chain into the anchor directly. There's not a master link. You'll just have to see how it's set up on your chain, and you cannot use multiple master links in a chain. So like, let's say your chain was short and you wanted to add a few links on. You can't master link a chain in the middle. It's not designed to work that way. It wasn't engineered to have multiple master links. So for this system, it was designed to have a master link chain anchor on both ends, and that's what it's designed for. Some other chains aren't designed that way. So you'll have to go in accordance to how your machine was designed. And I probably won't be the first one to tell you, and I won't be the last one, but as I'm getting older, I found out that I need to start using knee pads more. I'm getting better about it, but sometimes I forget, and then the next day I regret it. That's 34 up. That's the one we're gonna cut. Just like that. I realize at this point we haven't even mentioned yet what I'm working on. This is a DP-115 Caterpillar forklift, and I believe it's like a 1991 unit. This customer has a lot of these units. They are mostly all original engines and transmissions. Just as of recently, with the 30 to 40,000 hours I have on them, I've started to put an engine or transmission in it. In the background there with the mast sticking up, that cab's off because I just put a transmission in it. We'll finish that project up here in the near future. Alright, got that one in. Now we're going to drop this guy in here. These chains are major finger pinchers. This is a very heavy chain. Everything articulates, and you run a very high risk of jamming up your fingers. So I recommend moving slowly and deliberately, and make sure that you keep your hands out of the way when you go to drop it in place. Just like that. You always leave the nut on the end of the anchor because it's going to smack down there, and you don't want to dent up the threading because it sucks when that happens. Then you got to fix it. Like I said, I leave the nut in the bottom so when I drop it, it doesn't dent up the threads down here and they're all protected. There's that. And we'll be back tomorrow to finish this up. I got this side routed. Got to put the jam nut on yet. Torque that side. Put the limiting split pins at the bottom and the top. And then do the other side. So, see you guys tomorrow. Alright, boys and girls. We're back. Slight update from where I was at. I actually had a new technician ride with me, so I didn't record a lot, but we basically replaced this other side. That's done. I did make a mistake that I corrected, so I just based how I assembled the upper part based on how this lower part was. I thought I had an upper jam. The lower does not, or the upper does not. The upper has the nut and the jam nut on the bottom. It doesn't have an upper jam nut. So this side is done this way, that side's done that way, so I had to flip that one around. And then I got this side done. Got them all tensioned so they're equal. And then these bolts were loose and wore out, so they got new bolts. Yeah, this boom's done as far as having the chains fixed, but the next thing on my list is rebuild both of these lift cylinders and rebuild both of the tilt cylinders, because you can see they're obviously leaking. Anyway, so that job's complete. Hope you guys enjoyed some of those unique views up in the boom. As you can see, it's not that tall, like 12 foot up, but it's kind of fun to do those jobs where you get to go up in the boom lift and do stuff like that. So anyways, see you guys next time on Fixed Dish.